The invitation never came. I checked my mailbox every day for 3 weeks, watching my neighbors collect their bills and packages while my hands came back empty. My sister Emma was getting married in 2 months, and somehow, I wasn't invited to witness the most important day of her life. I called my mother first. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice carrying that familiar tone of manufactured sweetness. Emma wanted to keep it small. "You understand, don't you? Just immediate family." "I am immediate family, Mom." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. "Well, you know how things have been since you left David. Emma doesn't want any drama at her wedding." Drama. That's what they called it when I finally found the courage to leave my abusive husband. Drama. Not survival. Not self-preservation. Drama. I hung up without saying goodbye. The next morning, I drove past the country club where the reception was being held. White tents were already being assembled on the manicured lawn. I could see workers stringing lights between oak trees, the same trees Emma and I used to climb as children, making promises about being each other's maid of honor someday. That afternoon, I received a text from my cousin Sarah. "Can't believe you're not coming to Em's wedding. She said you were too busy with work?" Too busy with work. That was the story they were telling. Not that I wasn't invited. Not that my own family had decided I was too broken, too embarrassing, too much of a liability to witness my sister's happiness. I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by the silence that had become my constant companion since the divorce. The walls felt closer than usual, pressing in with the weight of abandonment. Outside, rain began to fall, each drop against the window like a whispered reminder of how alone I had become. My phone buzzed. A photo from my aunt's social media, Emma in her wedding dress, surrounded by our female cousins, all of them laughing at something off camera. The caption read, "Last girls' night before our beautiful bride says I do." I wasn't in the photo. I wasn't even a memory in that moment of joy. The rain grew heavier, and I found myself wondering if this was how it would always be now. If choosing my own safety, my own sanity, meant losing everyone I had ever loved. If the price of freedom was eternal exile from the family that had shaped me, broken me, and now discarded me. I closed my eyes and listened to the storm outside, feeling something shift inside my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just a quiet, growing certainty that this story wasn't over. The next 2 weeks passed in a haze of forced normalcy. I went to work, smiled at colleagues who asked about weekend plans, and pretended that my sister's wedding wasn't happening without me. But every night, I found myself staring at my phone, scrolling through family photos from years past, searching for clues about when I had become disposable. I remembered Emma's last wedding dress shopping trip. She had called me crying because our mother kept pushing her toward a dress that made her feel like a cream puff and tulle. I had driven 3 hours to the bridal shop, sat through 4 hours of trying on gowns, and held her hand when she finally found the one. The one that made her eyes light up, the one that made her feel beautiful. "Promise me you'll be there," she had whispered that day, squeezing my fingers. "Promise me you'll be right there when I walk down that aisle." I had promised. But promises, I was learning, were fragile things in my family. The isolation was becoming physical now. I stopped going to our usual coffee shop because Emma's future mother-in-law frequented it. I avoided the grocery store where my mother shopped. I even changed my jogging route to avoid passing the church where the ceremony would take place. My apartment felt like a sanctuary and a prison all at once. The silence here was different from the silence I had endured in my marriage. That silence had been filled with fear, with the constant tension of waiting for the next explosion. This silence was empty, clean, but so complete it sometimes made my ears ring. On Thursday evening, exactly 1 week before the wedding, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I rarely was anymore. Through the peephole, I saw a man I didn't recognize. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a navy suit that looked expensive but not flashy. He held a small envelope in his hands. "Miss Catherine Morrison?" he asked when I opened the door. "Yes. My name is Robert Chen. I'm Michael's father. Michael, Emma's fiancé. I was wondering if I might have a word with you." I invited him in, my hands trembling slightly as I poured coffee. Robert Chen had kind eyes, the sort that seemed to see more than they revealed. He sat at my small kitchen table, looking around my modest apartment without judgment. "I understand you won't be attending the wedding," he said gently. "I wasn't invited." He nodded slowly, as if this confirmed something he already suspected. "My son doesn't know I'm here. Neither does your sister. But I felt I needed to speak with you." The envelope sat between us on the table, cream-colored and formal. "Wedding invitation stock. I've been married for 35 years, Robert continued. "I've learned that families are complicated things. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who hurt us deepest, often without meaning to." I stared at the envelope, afraid to hope. "Emma talks about you constantly. Did you know that? Every time she comes to dinner, she mentions something you said, something you did together, some memory that makes her smile. She misses you terribly." "Then why?" "Because she's scared." His voice was soft but certain. "She's scared that if you're there, your mother will make a scene. She's scared that your father will drink too much and say something cruel about your divorce. She's scared that the day she's dreamed about since she was little will become about family drama instead of love." The words hit me like physical blows. Emma was protecting her wedding day from our family, from the very people who should have been celebrating with her. "But here's what I told my son," Robert continued. "A wedding without the people who truly matter isn't a celebration. It's a performance." He pushed the envelope toward me. "This is an invitation, not from Emma, not from your parents. From me, from Michael's family. We would be honored to have you there." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a formal invitation, but written in the margin, in careful handwriting, were the words, "Please come. You belong here." The Chen family. Outside. The rain had stopped, but I could still hear water dripping from the eaves, each drop marking time until a decision that would change everything. I held the invitation for 3 days, reading those handwritten words until they were memorized. "Please come. You belong here." The paper became soft from handling, the edges slightly worn from my nervous fingers tracing the elegant script. I called in sick to work on Friday, not because I was ill, but because I couldn't concentrate on spreadsheets and client calls when my mind was spinning with possibilities and fears. What would happen if I showed up? What would Emma's face look like when she saw me in the church? What would my mother do? That afternoon, I found myself in the one place I hadn't avoided, the cemetery where our grandmother was buried. Grandma Rose had been the glue that held our fractured family together, the woman who made Sunday dinners mandatory and arguments forbidden at her table. She had died 2 years ago, just months before my marriage fell apart. I sat beside her headstone, running my fingers over the engraved roses that decorated the marble. "I don't know what to do, Grandma," I whispered to the wind. "I don't know how to be part of this family anymore." The cemetery was quiet except for the sound of wind through the old oak trees. I remembered how Grandma Rose used to say that families were like gardens. They required tending, forgiveness, and sometimes pruning away the dead parts to help the healthy parts grow. But what happened when you weren't sure which parts were dead and which were just dormant? Saturday morning, I drove to the mall and found myself standing outside a dress shop. I hadn't bought anything dressy since my divorce. My wardrobe consisted of work clothes and weekend comfort. Nothing suitable for a wedding. Nothing suitable for facing the family that had erased me. The saleswoman was kind, patient as I tried on dress after dress, each one feeling like a costume for a role I wasn't sure I could play. Finally, I found one, deep navy blue, simple but elegant, with sleeves that would hide the faint scars on my wrists from the worst night of my marriage. "Special occasion?" the saleswoman asked as she rang up the purchase. "My sister's wedding." "How lovely. You must be so excited." I managed to smile. "Yes, very excited." That evening, I called Robert Chen. His voice was warm when he answered, as if he had been expecting my call. "I want to come," I said without preamble, "but I'm scared." Fear is understandable. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. What if Emma doesn't want me there? What if seeing me ruins her day? There was a pause, and I could hear voices in the background, the sounds of a family preparing for celebration. "Catherine, may I tell you something about my son?" When he first brought Emma home to meet us, she was nervous, chattering about everything except what was really on her mind. Finally, she stopped talking and said, I just want you to know that my sister is the strongest person I know, and if you can't accept her, you can't accept me. My breath caught in my throat. She defended you to us before we even knew there was anything to defend. She loves you, Catherine. She's just forgotten how to show it. After I hung up, I sat in my living room as darkness fell outside. The invitation lay on my coffee table, no longer just a piece of paper but a bridge across the chasm that had opened in my life. I thought about Emma as a little girl, how she used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, how she would practice walking in my high heels, dreaming of the day she would be a bride. I thought about the promises we had made to each other, the ones that seemed broken but might just be bent. The phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Catherine? The voice was barely a whisper. It's Emma. My heart stopped. Emma, I know Dad called you. Michael's dad. I mean, he told me what he did. Her voice was thick with tears. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Em, I wanted to invite you. I wrote your name on the list 100 times. But Mom said, and Dad said, and I was so scared that everything would fall apart if you were there. But Catherine, everything is already falling apart because you're not here. I closed my eyes, feeling tears slip down my cheeks. I bought a dress. You did? Navy blue. You always said navy blue was my color. She was crying now. I could hear it. Will you come, please? I know I don't deserve it, but will you come? Outside, the first stars were appearing in the clear sky. The storm had passed, leaving the air clean and full of possibility. I'll be there, I whispered. I promise. Sunday morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through my bedroom window, the kind of light that photographers pray for on wedding days. I woke before my alarm, my stomach tight with anticipation and nerves. Today, I would see my family for the first time in 8 months. Today, I would keep a promise I thought had been broken forever. I took my time getting ready, each step deliberate and calming. The navy dress fit perfectly, elegant without being attention-seeking. I chose simple pearl earrings, a gift from Grandma Rose, and let my hair fall in soft waves around my shoulders. In the mirror, I looked like myself again, not the hollow-eyed woman who had been hiding in this apartment for months. The church was a 20-minute drive from my apartment. I arrived early, parking across the street where I could watch the guests arrive. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I saw familiar faces, aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to since the divorce, family friends who had known me since childhood, cousins who had stopped calling when the family narrative painted me as the problem. At exactly 10:30, a black sedan pulled up to the church entrance. My parents stepped out, my mother resplendent in pale pink, my father adjusting his tie with the nervous energy he always displayed at formal events. They looked older somehow, more fragile than I remembered. For a moment, I felt a pang of something that might have been forgiveness. Then I saw the way my mother's eyes scanned the crowd of arriving guests, the slight tension in her shoulders that suggested she was still worried about drama, still afraid that my presence might somehow taint her daughter's perfect day. The forgiveness retreated, replaced by a familiar ache. I waited until most of the guests had entered before crossing the street. The church bells were ringing, their bronze voices calling everyone to witness love and commitment. I slipped through the heavy wooden doors and found a seat in the back, behind a pillar where I could see without being easily seen. The sanctuary was beautiful, filled with white roses and soft candlelight. Emma had always dreamed of a church wedding, had spent hours as a teenager sketching her ideal ceremony in the margins of her school notebooks. Seeing her vision come to life made my throat tight with emotion. The processional music began, and I watched as the wedding party made their way down the aisle. Bridesmaids in soft lavender, groomsmen in charcoal gray, all of them people I recognized but who hadn't acknowledged my existence in months. My cousin Sarah was the maid of honor, wearing the role that should have been mine. Then the bridal march began, and everyone rose. I stood with them, craning my neck to see around the pillar as the doors at the back of the sanctuary opened. Emma appeared, radiant in the dress we had chosen together, her arm linked through my father's. She was breathtaking, glowing with happiness and nerves, everything a bride should be. But as she began her walk down the aisle, I saw her eyes searching the crowd, looking for something or someone. Our eyes met across the crowded sanctuary. Emma's step faltered for just a moment, her hand tightening on my father's arm. I saw her lips form my name, though no sound reached me over the organ music. Then she smiled, the most genuine smile I had seen from her in years, and continued her walk toward her future. My father's eyes followed Emma's gaze and found me in the back pew. His expression was unreadable, a mixture of surprise and something that might have been relief. He nodded once, barely perceptible, before turning his attention back to his daughter. The ceremony was beautiful, filled with personal vows that made half the congregation weep and laughter that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. I watched my sister promise to love and honor Michael, watched him promise the same to her, and felt something healing inside my chest. This was what love should look like. Chosen, celebrated, supported by community. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the sanctuary erupted in applause and cheers. Emma and Michael kissed, then turned to face their guests, both of them beaming with joy. As they began their recessional walk back down the aisle, Emma's eyes found mine again. This time, she mouthed two words that I felt in my bones. "Thank you." I was gathering my purse to leave, planning to slip out before the receiving line formed, when a hand touched my shoulder. I turned to find Robert Chen standing beside my pew, impeccable in his morning coat, his kind eyes warm with understanding. "The reception is at the country club," he said quietly. "My wife is saving you a seat at our table." "I don't think, Catherine." His voice was gentle but firm. "You belong here. Let us prove it to you." Before I could protest, he offered me his arm. "Besides," he added with a small smile, "someone needs to make sure the father of the bride doesn't monopolize all the good stories about Emma. I have a feeling you have a few of your own." As we walked out of the church together, I felt the weight of curious stares and whispered conversations. But for the first time in months, I wasn't walking alone. And somehow, that made all the difference. The country club was transformed into something from a fairy tale. White linens draped every table, crystal glasses caught the afternoon light like scattered diamonds, and the same oak trees I had watched being strung with lights now created a canopy of golden warmth over the reception area. It was exactly what Emma had always dreamed of, down to the last detail. Robert Chen guided me to a table near the dance floor, where his wife Margaret rose to greet me with a warmth that felt genuine rather than polite. "Catherine, I'm so glad you could make it. Emma has told us so much about you." She gestured to the empty chair beside her. "We saved you the best view." The best view, it turned out, was of the head table where Emma and Michael sat surrounded by their wedding party. From here, I could see my sister's face clearly, could watch the way she threw her head back when she laughed, the way she kept reaching for Michael's hand as if to reassure herself that this moment was real. My parents sat at a table with my aunts and uncles, close enough that I could see my mother's carefully controlled expression. She had noticed my presence. I could tell by the way she held her shoulders, the slight tightness around her eyes. But she hadn't approached me, hadn't made a scene. Perhaps Robert Chen's invitation carried more weight than I had realized. The reception began with the usual traditions: the first dance, the father-daughter dance, the cutting of the cake. I watched it all from my sanctuary at the Chen family table, feeling like an observer of my own life. Margaret Chen kept up a gentle stream of conversation, asking about my work, my interests, treating me like a welcome guest rather than a family outcast. "You know," she said during a lull in the music, "Michael was so nervous about meeting Emma's family. He kept asking Robert what he should say, how he should act. But the first time Emma talked about you, his whole face lit up. He said anyone who could inspire that kind of love and loyalty in Emma must be pretty special." Before I could respond, the band leader's voice filled the tent. "Ladies and gentlemen, the bride has asked to say a few words." Emma stood at the microphone, radiant in her wedding dress, Michael's hand steady on her back. She looked out over the crowd of family and friends, her eyes bright with emotion. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice clear and strong. "When I was little, I used to imagine my wedding day, and I always pictured it exactly like this, surrounded by the people I love most in the world." Her eyes found mine across the tent, and I felt my breath catch. But I realized something today. A perfect wedding isn't about perfect decorations or perfect weather or even perfect family dynamics. A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. A perfect wedding is about having the courage to choose love, even when it's complicated, even when it's scary, even when it means admitting you've made mistakes. The tent had grown quiet, everyone sensing that this wasn't a typical wedding speech. I want to thank someone who taught me what real courage looks like. Someone who showed me that sometimes loving yourself means making hard choices, even when those choices hurt the people around you. Someone who has always been my hero, even when I was too scared to tell her so. Emma's voice broke slightly, and Michael squeezed her hand. Catherine, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. You belong here. You've always belonged here. And I'm sorry it took me so long to remember that. The tent was completely silent now. I could feel every eye in the room on me, could sense the collective held breath of a family confronting its own failures. My mother's face was pale, my father's jaw tight with emotion. Some of my cousins looked confused, others ashamed. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. Emma was crying now, mascara threatening to run despite the waterproof promises of her makeup artist. I walked toward the head table, aware of the whispers that followed in my wake, the rustle of fabric as people turned to watch. When I reached Emma, she stepped down from the small platform and threw her arms around me, wedding dress and all. We held each other in front of 200 guests, two sisters who had lost each other and found their way back. I'm sorry, she whispered against my ear. I'm so sorry for everything. I know. I whispered back. I love you too. When we finally separated, Emma's makeup was indeed ruined, but she had never looked more beautiful. She turned back to the microphone, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Now, she said, her voice stronger. Let's dance. The band struck up a waltz, and Michael swept Emma onto the dance floor. Other couples joined them, the normal rhythm of celebration resuming. But something had shifted in the tent. Some long-held tension finally released. I was making my way back to my table when my father appeared beside me. He looked older up close, more fragile than the intimidating figure of my childhood. His eyes were red-rimmed, whether from emotion or the champagne, I couldn't tell. Catherine, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. Dad, no. Let me say this. He took a shaky breath. When you left David, I thought you were giving up. I thought you were choosing the easy way out instead of working on your marriage. I didn't understand that you were choosing to survive. The words hung between us like a bridge I wasn't sure I was ready to cross. Your mother and I, we've been married 42 years. We've had our rough patches, but we always worked through them. I thought that's what marriage meant, enduring, no matter what. I didn't realize that something shouldn't be endured. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. This was supposed to be your Christmas present. I've been carrying it around for 8 months, hoping for a chance to give it to you. Inside the box was a delicate silver locket, the kind Grandma Rose used to wear. When I opened it, I found a tiny photo of Emma and me as children, arms around each other, gap-toothed grins bright with mischief and love. She would have wanted you to have it, my father said softly. Rose always said you girls were two halves of the same heart. I looked up at him, this man who had shaped so much of my understanding of love and disappointment, and saw something I hadn't expected, genuine remorse. I missed you, he said simply. We all missed you. Even when we were too proud or too stubborn to admit it. The music swelled around us, couples spinning across the dance floor in a celebration of love and commitment. My father extended his hand. Would you dance with your old man? I took his hand and he led me onto the dance floor. We moved slowly, carefully, like people learning to trust each other again. Over his shoulder, I could see Emma dancing with Michael, my mother watching from her table with an expression I couldn't quite read, Robert Chen raising his champagne glass in a small salute. For the first time in months, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The sun was setting by the time the reception began to wind down, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that rivaled Emma's carefully chosen color palette. I had spent the last hour moving through conversations with relatives I hadn't seen in months, Each interaction a small negotiation between past hurt and present possibility. My cousin Sarah had apologized for not calling after my divorce, admitting she hadn't known what to say. My Aunt Linda had pressed my hand and whispered that she was proud of me for having the courage to start over. Even my Uncle Frank, never one for emotional displays, had gruffly told me I looked good, healthy, like myself again. But it was my mother who surprised me most. I found her sitting alone at her table, watching Emma and Michael say goodbye to the last of their guests. The reception was nearly over, the band packing up their instruments, the catering staff beginning to clear tables. In the golden light of the setting sun, my mother looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable than the formidable woman who had ruled our family gatherings with such precision. "Mom," I said softly, taking the chair beside her. She turned to me, and I was startled to see tears in her eyes. "You look beautiful, Catherine. You look peaceful." "Thank you." We sat in silence for a moment, watching Emma laugh at something Michael whispered in her ear. The sound carried across the tent, pure joy unfiltered by worry or fear. "I was wrong," my mother said suddenly. "About your marriage, about David, about you." The words hung in the air between us, heavier than any of the apologies I had received that day. "I thought marriage was about endurance," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "about making it work no matter what. That's what my mother taught me, what her mother taught her. You stay, you endure, you make the best of it." She turned to face me fully, and I saw decades of her own compromises written in the lines around her eyes. I didn't understand that some marriages aren't worth saving, that sometimes leaving takes more courage than staying. Her voice broke slightly. "I failed you, Catherine, when you needed your mother most. I failed you." "Mom, no. Let me finish." She reached for my hand, her fingers cool and trembling. I was so afraid of what people would think, of what they would say about our family. I was more concerned with appearances than with your safety, your happiness. I chose my reputation over my daughter, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. The tent was nearly empty now, just family members lingering over the last of the champagne. Emma had changed into her going-away dress, a simple cream-colored sheath that made her look young and hopeful. She was moving from table to table, hugging relatives goodbye, her new husband never far from her side. "I want you to know," my mother continued, "that I've left David's name off every Christmas card list, every family gathering invitation. I've made it clear to everyone that he is not welcome in our family. It's not enough, I know, but it's a start." I felt something shift inside my chest, a knot of anger and hurt that had been wound tight for months beginning to loosen. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. "I've been seeing someone," my mother said quietly, "a therapist, Dr. Martinez. She's been helping me understand things about families, about enabling, about the difference between supporting someone and protecting their abuser." This was perhaps the most shocking revelation of the day. My mother, who had always viewed therapy as a sign of weakness, who had raised us to believe that family problems should stay within the family. She says healing takes time. That trust has to be rebuilt slowly, with actions, not just words. My mother's grip on my hand tightened. "I'm willing to do the work, Catherine, however long it takes." Before I could respond, Emma appeared beside our table, radiant despite the long day. "Are you two having a moment?" she asked, her voice teasing but gentle. "We're having a conversation," my mother said, standing to embrace her newly married daughter. "The first real one we've had in a long time." Emma looked between us, hope and caution warring in her expression. "Good conversations?" "Getting there," I said, and meant it. Emma hugged me then, long and tight, the way she used to when we were children and one of us had been hurt. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us another chance. Thank you for asking me to." Michael appeared with their luggage, ready to whisk his new bride away to their honeymoon in Italy. As they prepared to leave, Emma turned back to me one more time. "When we get back," she said, "I want to have dinner. Just us, like we used to." "I'd like that." I watched them drive away in a shower of rice and rose petals, their car decorated with tin cans and "just married" signs. The sound of their laughter carried on the evening air long after they had disappeared from sight. The cleanup was swift and efficient, the magical transformation of the afternoon dissolving back into ordinary reality. Tables were folded, linens packed away, flowers distributed among family members who wanted to take home a piece of the celebration. Robert Chen found me as I was preparing to leave, pressing a small card into my hand. "Our phone number," he explained. "Margaret and I would love to have you over for dinner sometime." Emma wasn't the only one who gained a sister today. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter than I had in months. The evening air was cool and sweet, carrying the scent of roses and the promise of rain. In my purse, I carried my father's locket, my mother's tentative offer of reconciliation, and Emma's invitation to rebuild what we had lost. The drive home was peaceful, the roads quiet in the gathering dusk. I thought about the woman I had been that morning, nervous and uncertain, afraid of rejection and confrontation. I thought about the woman I was now, driving home from her sister's wedding with hope unfurling in her chest like a flower after winter. When I reached my apartment, I didn't go inside immediately. Instead, I sat in my car and called the one person who had made this day possible. "Robert? It's Catherine. I wanted to thank you." "No thanks necessary," his warm voice replied. "How are you feeling?" I looked up at my apartment window, at the life I had built from the ashes of my marriage, at the future that suddenly seemed full of possibility again. "Like I'm home," I said, and for the first time in months, it was true. 3 weeks after the wedding, I found myself standing in front of a restaurant I hadn't visited in over a year. Caf Luna had been Emma's and my place, where we used to meet for Sunday brunch and share the kind of conversations that only sisters can have. The hostess recognized me immediately, her smile genuine and warm. "Catherine, we haven't seen you in ages. Your usual table?" "Our usual table." The corner booth by the window, where Emma and I had celebrated promotions and mourned breakups, where we had planned her engagement party and where I had first told her about David's violence. The same table where she had cried when I told her I was leaving him. Not because she didn't support me, but because she was terrified of what he might do. Emma was already there when I arrived, looking different somehow. Marriage suited her. There was a glow about her that went beyond the typical newlywed radiance. She looked settled, confident in a way I hadn't seen before. When she saw me, her face lit up with the same joy I had seen at the wedding. "You came," she said, standing to hug me. "Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you would. But I know I have a lot to make up for." We ordered our usual Emma's Belgian waffles with strawberries, my eggs Benedict, and for a few minutes, it felt like old times. But there was an undercurrent of tension, the weight of 8 months of silence and hurt that couldn't be erased by one beautiful wedding moment. "I need to tell you something," Emma said, setting down her coffee cup with deliberate care. "About why I really didn't invite you to the wedding. I had thought we were past this, that her public apology had closed that chapter. But the look in her eyes told me there was more to the story. It wasn't just Mom and Dad pressuring me," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "David called me 3 weeks before the wedding." The name hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't heard it spoken aloud in months, had trained myself not to think about the man who had nearly destroyed me. "What did he say?" "He said he was worried about you, that you were having some kind of breakdown, making up stories about him to justify leaving. He said you might cause a scene at the wedding, that you might hurt yourself or someone else if you were there." The restaurant noise faded to a dull hum. I could feel my heart pounding, the familiar panic response that David's manipulation had trained into me. Even from a distance, even after our divorce was final, he was still finding ways to control my life. He sounded so concerned, so genuinely worried. Emma continued, tears starting to form in her eyes. "And I knew things had been bad between you two, but you never told me how bad. You never told me about the hospital visits, about the police reports, about any of it. Because I was ashamed," I whispered. "Because I thought it was my fault. You showed me pictures, Catherine. Pictures of you with bruises, with a black eye. He said you had fallen down the stairs, that you were drinking too much, that you were becoming violent yourself." I closed my eyes, remembering those photos. David had taken them after particularly bad nights, claiming he needed them for insurance, in case I ever tried to leave him. I had never imagined he would use them as weapons against me with my own family. I believed him, Emma said, her voice breaking completely now. I believed him because it was easier than believing that my sister was being tortured and I had done nothing to help. I believed him because the alternative meant admitting that I had failed you when you needed me most. The waitress approached our table, took one look at our faces, and quietly retreated. Around us, other diners continued their cheerful conversations, oblivious to the reckoning happening in the corner booth. After the wedding, after I saw you there looking so strong and beautiful and whole, I knew he had lied. Michael's father told me about the invitation he gave you, about how you were afraid to come because you thought we didn't want you there. And I realized that David had succeeded in isolating you even from me. Emma reached across the table and took my hands in hers. I called Dr. Martinez, Mom's therapist. She explained to me what emotional abuse looks like, how abusers use family members as weapons against their victims. She helped me understand that by believing David, by excluding you from the wedding, I had become part of his abuse. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw the weight of guilt she had been carrying. Emma had always been the golden child, the one who made the right choices, who never caused problems. Learning that she had been manipulated, that she had unknowingly hurt me, was devastating her sense of herself. I said gently, you were a victim too. He manipulated you just like he manipulated me, but I should have known better. I should have called you, talked to you directly instead of just believing him. He's very good at what he does. That's what makes him so dangerous. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of David's continued presence in our lives settling between us like a shadow. Even divorced, even with a restraining order in place, he was still finding ways to hurt me through the people I loved. There's something else, Emma said quietly. Michael and we've been talking to a lawyer about the photos David showed me, about him contacting me to manipulate the situation. Dr. Martinez says it might constitute harassment, stalking even. I felt a chill run down my spine. Emma, no, I don't want you involved in this. I don't want him to target you too. He already has targeted me. He used me to hurt you, and I won't let that happen again. Before I could protest further, Emma pulled out her phone and showed me a series of text messages, all from David, sent over the past few weeks. Messages asking about me, about whether I was getting help, about whether the family was keeping an eye on me. Messages that seemed concerned on the surface but carried an undertone of threat. He's been texting me since the wedding, Emma explained. Ever since he found out you were there. He's angry that his plan didn't work, that we're reconciling. The familiar fear crept up my throat, the terror that had been my constant companion during my marriage. David didn't like to lose control, and my presence at Emma's wedding, my reconciliation with my family, represented a loss of the power he had held over me. We need to document this, Emma continued. All of it. The photos, the phone calls, the text messages. Michael's father knows a lawyer who specializes in domestic abuse cases. She says we might have grounds for additional charges. I wanted to say no. Wanted to retreat back into the safety of invisibility. But looking at my sister's determined face, I realized that hiding hadn't protected me. It had only given David more power to manipulate the people I loved. Okay, I said quietly, but we do this together. No more secrets. No more protecting each other from the truth. Emma squeezed my hands. Together. As we left the restaurant, I felt the familiar weight of fear settling on my shoulders. But this time, it was accompanied by something else. The knowledge that I wasn't facing this alone anymore. David had tried to use my family against me, but in doing so, he had awakened something fierce and protective in them. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt like I might actually win it. The law office of Chen, Martinez and Associates occupied the top floor of a gleaming downtown building, all glass and steel, reaching toward a sky that seemed impossibly blue for such a heavy day. I sat in the waiting room beside Emma and Michael, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking, watching the city move below us through floor-to-ceiling windows. It had been 2 weeks since our lunch at Cafe Luna, 2 weeks of documenting David's continued harassment, of gathering evidence that painted a picture of systematic manipulation and control that extended far beyond our marriage. Emma had been methodical in her approach, screenshotting every text message, saving every voicemail, creating a timeline that revealed the calculated nature of David's campaign to isolate me from my family. "Mrs. Morrison?" A woman appeared in the doorway, tall and elegant with silver hair pulled back in a neat chignon. "I'm Sarah Martinez, Robert's daughter-in-law. Thank you for coming in today." Sarah Martinez had the kind of presence that immediately inspired confidence, calm, competent, with eyes that missed nothing. Her office was warm despite its professional efficiency, filled with plants and family photos that humanized the legal degrees and awards covering the walls. "I've reviewed all the materials Emma provided," she began, settling behind her desk with a thick file. "The pattern of behavior you've described is unfortunately common in domestic abuse cases. The abuser's need to maintain control doesn't end with divorce, it often escalates." She opened the file and spread out printed copies of David's text messages, the photos he had shown Emma, phone records that revealed a pattern of calls to my family members that I hadn't even known about. "What David did contacting your sister to manipulate her into excluding you from the wedding, that's called abuse by proxy. He used Emma as a weapon against you, which makes her a victim as well." Emma shifted uncomfortably in her chair. "I should have seen through it. I should have known. Abusers are master manipulators," Sarah replied gently. "They're skilled at presenting themselves as the reasonable party, the concerned ex-husband just worried about his unstable former wife. David knew exactly which buttons to push with your family." She turned to a fresh page in the file. "The continued contact after the wedding, especially given the existing restraining order, constitutes stalking under state law. The fact that he's now targeting family members could allow us to expand the protective order to include them. What does that mean, practically?" Michael asked. He had been quiet through most of the meeting, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the protective anger he was trying to keep in check. "It means David would be legally prohibited from contacting any of you, Catherine, Emma, even your parents if they choose to be included. Any violation would result in immediate arrest." The idea of expanding protection to my family was both relieving and terrifying. It meant acknowledging that David's reach extended beyond me, that his capacity for harm could touch anyone I loved. "There's something else," Sarah continued, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "I've been in contact with David's previous attorney, the one who handled your divorce. It seems David has been less than truthful about certain aspects of your marriage." She pulled out another document, this one bearing the letterhead of David's former law firm. During the divorce proceedings, David claimed that the physical abuse allegations were fabricated, that you were an unreliable witness due to mental health issues. His attorney presented a very different picture of your marriage than what the evidence now suggests. "What kind of evidence?" I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. "Medical records that David's attorney claimed didn't exist. Police reports that were supposedly lost. Witness statements from neighbors who heard the fights, saw the aftermath. It appears David's legal team worked very hard to bury evidence that would have supported your case." The room felt like it was tilting slightly. During my divorce, I had felt like I was fighting shadows, like every piece of evidence I tried to present was somehow discredited or dismissed. I had begun to doubt my own memories, to wonder if maybe David was right. Maybe I was unstable, unreliable. "This is good news," Sarah continued, seeing my expression. "It means we have grounds to reopen certain aspects of your divorce settlement. The financial arrangements, the property division, all of it was negotiated under false pretenses." Emma reached for my hand. "Catherine, this could change everything." But I was thinking about something else, something that had been nagging at me since Emma first told me about David's phone call. How did he know about the wedding? I never told him about it. "We haven't spoken since the divorce was finalized." Sarah and Emma exchanged a look that made my stomach drop. "We think he's been monitoring your activities," Sarah said carefully. "Social media, possibly. Or what? Emma, do you want to tell her? Or should I?" My sister's face had gone pale. "We think he might have been following you. Physically following you." The words hit me like ice water. What do you mean? Emma pulled out her phone and showed me a photo that made my blood freeze. It was me, walking out of my apartment building, taken from across the street. I was wearing the navy dress I had bought for the wedding, carrying the small purse I had chosen so carefully. David sent this to me the day after the wedding, Emma said quietly, with a message saying he was concerned about my mental state and that I should keep an eye on my behavior. I stared at the photo, trying to process what I was seeing. David had been there outside my apartment, watching me prepare for my sister's wedding. He had seen me choose hope over fear, had watched me decide to fight for my family, and he had documented it like evidence of my instability. How long? I whispered. How long has he been watching me? We don't know, Sarah replied, but we're going to find out. I'm recommending that we file for an emergency expansion of the restraining order, and I'm also suggesting that you consider hiring a private investigator to document any surveillance. The meeting continued for another hour, covering legal strategies and safety protocols, but I felt like I was underwater, everything muffled and distant. The life I had built after leaving David, my quiet apartment, my careful routines, my slowly healing sense of safety, all of it had been an illusion. He had been there all along, watching, waiting, planning his next move. As we prepared to leave, Sarah handed me her business card. Catherine, I want you to know that what David did to you, what he's still doing, it's not your fault. You survived something that destroys many people, and you're still fighting. That takes extraordinary courage. Outside the law office, the three of us stood on the sidewalk in the afternoon sunlight, each lost in our own thoughts. The city moved around us with its usual energy, people hurrying to meetings and appointments, living lives uncomplicated by restraining orders and surveillance photos. I'm scared, I admitted finally. We all are, Michael said, but we're not letting him win. Not anymore. Emma linked her arm through mine, the gesture so familiar from our childhood that it brought tears to my eyes. Remember what Grandma Rose used to say, the only way out is through. I looked up at the building where Sarah Martinez was probably already preparing our case, where other lawyers were fighting similar battles for other women who had found the courage to leave, to fight, to reclaim their lives from men who believed they owned them. Through, I repeated, and for the first time since seeing that photo, I felt something stronger than fear. I felt determination.